My name is Katie Paris. I'm the founder of Red Wine and Blue, reporting in from Ohio. Tonight, I actually do have my red wine because I know that Heather has brought her famous Diet Dr. Pepper in a wine glass. So I just had to, match with our wine glasses here tonight. So for those of you who haven't been with us before, Red Wine and Blue is a community of about 500,000 women all across the country, diverse suburban women coming together to defeat extremism one friend at a time. And that friend part is really important. This is about building a community that works together year round. Now, there's no question. Election season, what we're in right now, is really go time. But we do this kind of work together all year round because our values are that important. Our families, our kids, our communities are that important. So we're so glad that you're here tonight. And we hope that you feel a little bit about what keeps us always coming back for more, which is just that sense of not being alone. I have got my vote yes on issue 1 sweatshirt on tonight. If I'm honest, I think I've worn this every day for about 2 weeks now. And the lead up to the big vote on the ballot initiative here in Ohio, we're voting yes to protect reproductive rights, to enshrine reproductive freedom in our state constitution. Our election is just 5 days away. Elections all across this country for school board, for state legislature in Virginia, for state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. We have such important elections coming up. And we invited Heather here tonight because she understands this and she knows the historical context of it. She's going to answer all of our questions, keep us motivated, keep us focused for tonight. So I want to go ahead and bring you on, Heather. I feel like we've been on quite a journey together now.
I remember when we first started talking and you were just starting out, and you look at where we've come, it's really pretty astonishing. So congratulations, among other things.
Oh, thank you, Heather. So yeah, it all started with a DM on Facebook. I knew who you were through your letters. Of course, women in our community were already talking about you, sharing your newsletter all the time. And, I just reached out. It just felt like such an important point of connection. Of course, you responded. We started doing Facebook Lives and Zoom events and stuff like that together. And there's just something about what happens when the Heather Cox Richardson community and the Red Wine and Blue community come together. And there's a lot of overlap there, right? But I think, what do you think it is, Heather?
What really jumps out to me, I've been traveling around the country these days, and what really jumps out to me is honestly, it feels like there is a movement underway. And it's really interesting as a historian because it's a movement that looks very much to me like the alliance movement of the late 1890s, or of 1890, and then the populist movement that came after that in the late 1890s, where traditional media and traditional politicians didn't see it coming. And there's this whole movement underway that is really taking on the issue of extremism and taking on the issue of extremism in a bipartisan fashion. And it's really seeming to come together now with the increasing understanding around the country that we're facing a different kind of extremism than we've ever faced before. But by God, we're strong enough to fight back now, thanks to organizations like Red Wine and Blue.
I feel that so much too. There's something really powerful happening. And I don't think that, the establishment sort of, politicians, the pundits out of Washington, D.C. necessarily get it. There was this whole notion of, oh, we know what's going to happen in the midterms. Women are going to have forgotten about Roe v. Wade, which is just ridiculous. But, these sort of ideas develop among, the establishment class. And it's just so interesting to me how I felt. I worked in D.C. years ago. And I feel like being out in the middle of the country and in touch with the women in our communities day in and day out makes me smarter, more creative, better prepared to fight for our democracy, and frankly, more successful, because we are here, we are on the ground and so deeply rooted in our values and fighting for all the right reasons.
Well, and part of what I think we're advancing is the idea that what really defines America is community. And the idea that somehow we're all supposed to be lone cowboys riding off into the sunset, slinging our guns, is very much a really specific image from a very specific time. What has always made America work is communities, and very diverse communities in terms of age and race and class and gender, that work to support their children, basically, and to make sure that we can all survive. And reclaiming that is kind of exciting.
You talk a lot about that in your book, and so I want to talk more about that later. How are you feeling 5 days out from this election? What do we know historically about off year? They call it off year elections. Doesn't feel like an off year to me here in Ohio, but odd year elections. What do we know historically about turnout? And do you expect this year to be similar or different? What's it feeling like to you?
So short term, the off year elections turn out way fewer people than the big elections, the every 2 years, or especially the every 4 years. And crucially, there is a partisan gap in that Republicans are far more likely to turn out for every single election, every single time, from dog catcher through to, whatever. And that actually really matters, because that's where you start the pool of people who move up the chain. And at the same time, those are also the same people who affect things on the ground. So one of the things that political scientists like to point to is that the reason we have gerrymandered states to the degree we have in North Carolina, for example, is because Republicans turn out for the state elections in ways that the Democrats don't. So historically, we see Republicans turning out for everything. And one of the really important pieces I think that Red, Wine, and Blue does so well is to remind people to vote in every single election, and to take your friends. Because a lot of people, you think they vote, but they really are, sometimes they skip an election. Sometimes they think, oh, it's not that important. Who really cares? It really matters. And, if you don't think it matters, it's worth pointing out that the current Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson from Shreveport, Louisiana, has never faced an opponent in an election, which is,
Wow.
think about it. So one of the things I think going forward, not just for this election, but for the future, is to remember that people who are combating extremism need to turn out for every single election and to run candidates for every single election, even if it looks like they don't stand a chance. As I always say to my students, it's not that you're out there to win necessarily when you're applying for a job, or when you're running for office, or when you're trying to get tenure. It's that you are advertising your ideas. And yeah, maybe it won't work this year, but somebody's going to be listening, and they might pay more attention next year. And so getting out there, turning people out, contesting every election, really changing things on the ground, the school boards, the local elections, is crucial going forward.
I wonder what it is that it feels like you hear a lot of times. We complain about low voter turnout. Why don't more people vote? Why don't people understand how important their vote is? Your vote is your voice. But yet, when we think about our own group of friends or family or most immediate connections, we go, "Oh no, they're all voting. They're all voting. I don't have to worry about them." And I wonder what that is in terms of that, that bias of sort of, well, the things that are close to me, we think it's all good and it's okay. I don't know what's going on there. If you have any insight on that, because it's just so true that, especially, it's true in every election, honestly. But, like, I live in a community that has some of the highest vote propensity in my state. Yet
That's because you live nearby and they don't dare not show up.
Okay, all right. No, but even in my community, okay, maybe not on my block, but they're all hearing from me. But even in my community, I mean, there are, we had this August special election with massive turnout in Ohio. We still didn't, break out of like 55% turnout here. That is a lot of people not voting. So how do we break through that in terms of getting us to recognize that we have the power? We talk a lot about this at Red, Wine, and Blue. I think people are anxious sometimes to talk to the people who are close to them about politics. I see that shifting as people see just how important this is, and that actually you can create community and friendships out of, connecting through volunteerism and caring about these democracy issues. But, I don't know, Heather, like, how do we kind of break through that, whatever bias that is?
Well, again, I think that the mechanisms that Red, Wine, and Blue are using to empower people and to recognize that they really are powerful are crucially important. And just as a point of comparison here, in the takeover of this country by the radical right, it actually began in the 1950s and the 1960s with organizations like the John Birch Society. And that literally organized in people's homes. You got your friends to show up, and then you got your friends to go with you to vote. And there's absolutely no reason that people who care about destroying extremism shouldn't organize in exactly the same ways and not be frightened to talk about it and to say, listen, we might disagree about, how one should teach sophomore English, but by God, we can agree that the people who should be deciding that are not these extremists who are coming in from another state even. So I think part of it is recognizing that we really do have agency. And one of the things that concerns me a little bit is especially people on the left center have really, since I think the 1950s and the 1960s, and to some degree the 1970s, when the Supreme Court was then acting to protect individual rights in the states, have become accustomed to sort of saying, oh, we'll let the Washington take care of it. So long as we vote for a president, they'll take care of everything. And the truth is that where the ground action is at the local level is where decisions about people's lives are going to be made in the community. But then, of course, at the state level as well, we get gerrymandering, we get voter suppression, we get all of the things that matter so terribly for the national story. And one of the things I think that I'm always hammering is the idea that we are the ones who get to decide the direction of this country, but we have got to show up to do it, or your decisions are going to be made for you by somebody else.
Okay, this idea of who's in charge and the gerrymandering that we have seen, where we have representation that isn't actually representative of the people, that is just ringing so deeply true for me in Ohio. And I know other states are experiencing this right now. So we're trying to pass a constitutional amendment, right, to enshrine reproductive freedom in our Constitution. What's a little bit different in Ohio and some other states that are taking on this fight than, let's say, Michigan, where they have Gretchen Whitmer and other champions of reproductive rights in their state legislature, throughout their state government. Their state Supreme Court is a pro-choice majority. It's the opposite in Ohio. We have a state government that does not want this citizen-led ballot initiative to pass. And they're using every mechanism they can. Heather, you wrote about this in your newsletter a few nights ago. They're actually using state government websites to disseminate blatant, just very inflammatory, false information. And people are seeing it, right? Because Google thinks, oh, that's a government authoritative site. We will provide that as an authoritative response when people are searching for information on this issue. Now, at Red, Wine, and Blue, Britt Bischoff on our team, who's an amazing digital strategist, flagged this for our organizers. Everyone, of course, was outraged to see our state government doing this. We've been reporting to Google every day, this is disinformation, this is disinformation. We got the AP to report about it. And the traffic is going down on that site. I mean, it was down to 0 this morning. It'll be up again overnight, and then we're going to fight it down again tomorrow. And, so I see we could have said, that's the government, that's Google, there's nothing we can possibly do, but we do have power, as citizens in this. But, I guess it's just, I wanted to, because you covered that in your newsletter, I was so curious to hear about, is that unprecedented? To what extent do we have state-sponsored disinformation, and how does that impact us as citizens trying to fight for a democracy that can actually work when we have our own governments against us?
Well, so I'm laughing a bit, not about Ohio where things are dire, but because if you make my newsletter, things are not going well in your state, I have to say. So, because I've only got 1,200 words, I try and use them pretty carefully, and I'm like, darn it, I got to write about Ohio. What's happening in Ohio is unusual with that particular government website. Although for that issue coming up to a vote on the Constitution, although certainly we have seen examples in Florida, for example, of state websites advancing disinformation, especially over COVID and over the things that have happened during Governor Ron DeSantis's tenure there in Florida. But I think they are all part of a larger piece right now, where the mechanics of government, of state government, and during the Trump administration of the national government got taken over by a very vocal radical minority. And they're perfectly willing to use all the tools of the government that traditionally are nonpartisan in order to push their agenda. And their agenda is worth taking the long view of, because while certainly in Ohio right now the issue is reproductive choice, and in other states there are other things that are on the ballot. Overall, what they are doing is they are imposing or trying to impose the views of a very small minority on the American majority. And now we know that the people who are really pulling the strings, at least in the House of Representatives, are Christian nationalists. This is, of course, deeply, deeply offensive to our understanding of what American democracy is supposed to be about. That is, from the very beginning, both the founders of the nation and the framers of the Constitution took a very strong stand on the idea there should not be an established religion in this country, and that the government and the churches should be separate. There should be a wall of separation between those two. There are all kinds of gyrations they've gone through to try and say, oh, no, that's not really the case, but it is the case. And anybody who studies American history will tell you that that's true. Even more than that, though, the idea of the imposition of religious law on our democracy, of course, destroys democracy because it does establish a certain religion. And then from that religion gets things like the lack of rights for LGBTQ plus people, ends reproductive rights for women, and rights outside the home for women. We know in Texas, for example, women are not supposed to be traveling on certain roads to get out of state to obtain reproductive health care. There are many ways in which the imposition of that Christian nationalism will dramatically affect the people living in the United States. And one of the things that we don't always think about when you think about Christian nationalism is that it is based on real opposition to immigration and on the idea of immigrants in America and immigrants who are already here. So if you think about the larger picture here, even if you think you might not care deeply about who is sitting on your school board in your state or in your town, you do care, unless you believe that a minority should dictate the entire parameters of your life. And there aren't many Americans, I think, who believe that.
How did we get here? Okay, I want to bring on, I think what you've been very clear about is that the antidote to all of this is community and connection. And I want to bring on Dale Marie Ponce from Ohio, down south from me, outside of Cincinnati. Or no, you're in Cincinnati, right, Dale? Okay, I want to bring on Dale because she has been having great success organizing, energizing volunteers and voters in Ohio around issue 1, school board issues as well. But she's been having just a lot of success, and I'm so excited for her to come on and share that. Dale, can you come on and just tell us what's been going on and what your experience is in terms of building community, and that as the antidote to extremism, these threats to our democracy and majority rule?
Absolutely. Hi, Heather. Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me on here. When issue 1 means a lot to me personally. When Roe fell, I immediately thought of my late mother, who was raped at age 22 and became pregnant. And it was before Roe v. Wade. And fast forward 15 years, she actually then needed an abortion before me for a miscarriage. And so I've brought that kind of enthusiasm and determination to my work here at Red Wine and Blue, and have been really excited to work with women in the community. And in particular, thinking of a woman named Megan, who I met very early on in my tenure. And she said, what can I do to help? And I said, would you hold a gathering in your home? And she said, I love to throw parties. And I said, perfect. We will be great friends. She said, I don't know how many people I'm going to get. I live in a conservative area, so I don't want to make any promises about how many people will show up. Might just be 3 or 4 people. So she did not need to worry. There were 25 people who RSVP'd and 25 people who showed up, which never happens if you've ever thrown a party. And everyone, women from 20s to their 70s, who were ready to sign up for rallies, sign up for red, wine, and blue, get involved, be a trouble maven. Everybody's mad as hell and ready to pass issue 1 and get involved with their school board elections as well. So we added more than 20 people to the red, wine, and blue community that night. But my favorite part was as I was leaving, Megan said, you know, I didn't know what to expect. I'm really happy with the turnout. But even better, I feel like I found my squad. And it was so funny because she completely forgot that we call our gatherings Rally Your Squad. So she said, it seems kind of corny. And I said, no, it's actually completely perfect. So, you know, made new friends, got invited to Thanksgiving. We're going to have some more events because 2024 is coming right up very soon. But it just showed that relational organizing works and it creates community. That's exactly what we need in times like this.
Dale, that's so beautiful. Go ahead, Heather.
Actually, that's a totally cool story, and I love it. I love it. You know, that's what so much of this is all about, is finding your squad.
Yeah, cheers to that, Heather. I didn't even make you show your Diet Dr. Pepper in your wine glass tonight. So I'm assuming there was probably wine and some other good drinks there, Dale. So cheers to you and amazing organizing on the ground. You know, I had people come to my house last night on the other end of the state, and just the energy in the room was palpable. And my favorite part is when this happens at every single red, wine, and blue gathering. I'm chatting with 2 women. You would think from how they're finishing each other's sentences that they've been best friends since college. And then it comes up, oh no, we just met each other in March collecting signatures to get reproductive rights on the ballot. You know what I mean? And they're the best of friends. And so I think that, you know, there was even a time where I thought like, oh, hosting people at my house for a political event, that are only people associate me with politics or something. It's just, we put all these ideas in our head because of what our culture and society tells us. But my phone has been blowing up today from new friends and old friends, just like telling me how energized and better connected to the community and how they feel a sense of agency today because of that experience last night, giving them connections in the community. They signed up to canvas together, signed up to do phone banks and, you know, and rally their squads together, right? So it's incredibly powerful stuff. And I think we need to not downplay it. I think it's the secret sauce of what Heather has tapped into in terms of, because it's not just the letters, it's the community around the letters. And it is, you know, the same thing with red, wine, and blue. People, you know, those who are pushing all this extremism on us, they want us to feel isolated and alone and disconnected, because then we throw up our hands and, you know, whatever, we don't fight back. And this is quite the opposite.
Do you know, I actually think there's something else in that secret sauce, though.
Yeah.
And that's that you make better friendships when you're working on something together. Yeah. And one of the things that really jumps out to me is so many people are so frightened. You know, what's going to happen next? You know, are we ever going to get out of this time? And there's definitely that side of what's going on. But the same sense of turmoil is also, to my mind, extraordinarily creative. You know, we get to actually build something. And I don't know about you all, but I have spent most of my life fighting a holding action and being like, if only I can stop this next bad thing from happening. And now we're going the other way and saying, okay, yeah, we have to get together to stop this particular thing from happening. But what are we going to build? And look at all the cool people that I'm building with. And I got to say, you know, I look around at all these incredible people, these talented, creative, principled, and decent people. And I think, yeah, you know, this is going to be really cool. And that, I think there is real creativity here and real joy in the creation, and not just horror, which is what people tend to focus on in the news.
Dale, thank you so much. And now I want to bring up Kim Barbaro. Yeah. So Kim Barbaro is working on, speaking of the expansion of the squads. Kim, you and Missy are going to be going nuts studying this chat tomorrow. So can you imagine?
I'm so excited. I can't even tell you how excited I am to tell you about Red, Wine, and Blue's newest program and venture. And it's exactly about that, right? It's exactly about finding your squad. It's exactly about starting your own group in your own community. We're so passionate and we believe so much in these grassroots organizations, you know, that started out with 1 and 2 women wanting to make a change, seeing what's happening and really claiming their own power and how much they can affect things in their own communities. So we always get these questions about, you know, when are you coming to my state? When is Red, Wine, and Blue going to show up in my area? And I'm going to issue a challenge that we don't need to be there for you. We need to be there to support you. And we have a program to do that now. And that program is called Trouble Nation. So if you have not found your squad yet, we are gathering groups from all over the country now, offering them resources to start their own groups, to help them find each other. It is so exciting. And we believe in the power of organizing locally. You all know what's important in your own communities. You know how to get your folks motivated to want to get to the polls and speak out at your school boards and in support of your libraries and all of this extremism that's happening. So whether you have an established group, whether you are looking for your squad and need to find it, whether you're just starting, even if you're that blue dot that we heard about earlier, within, you know, so many women we hear talk about being that blue dot, Trouble Nation is there for you. And let me tell you what Trouble Nation does. We have a platform. You can start and join a group. You can search for groups in your area. We provide you with resources for your leadership, resources to keep your members engaged and educated. We give you ideas for calls to action. We don't want to tell you what to do. We want you to guide what your community needs. And we just think it's amazing what's been happening. We launched only about a little over a month ago. We already have over 100 groups in Trouble Nation in 34 states. So we want to get that number up, and that all relies on everyone here on this call. You know, Heather talked about it earlier. It's all about community. We have some real superstars who have shown up, who I really feel the need. I want to shout them out because I'm so grateful to be working with them. There's Stephanie in Reno, in Nevada, who just started a group, and she's got 70 people already who are signing on to start doing work. It's amazing. Debbie in Michigan, Susan and Weta in North Carolina. So no matter where you are in the country, Trouble Nation is here for you. You can find your squad. And I was talking a little bit earlier about, you know, hearing the blue dot and so many women talk about these conservative areas that they live in. I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is pretty much one of the hearts of some of the most extreme school board action. And a little hopeful story, I started my own kind of Trouble Nation group, and started with just an email list of 40 people. I live in a very conservative red area. We're over 250 members now in this tiny community. And we had a win just 2 weeks ago. An extremist PAC sent out a letter attacking a teacher in our middle school, named her for including an LGBTQ character in an exercise in her classroom. And with our group of folks, we were able to get our letters to the school board. We caught their attention. We got our tiny little local media to print news about it. We had speakers sign up to talk at the meeting. We had a crowd of people who weren't comfortable speaking, but came to support and clap and cheer us on. And then the most amazing thing happened. Our majority conservative school board, supported our teachers and spoke out. This is a big deal in my community. They try to stay in neutral for sure, all the time. It was amazing. It was like a party broke out afterwards, the feel good. So I want to speak to those people too, in those blue dots in those red areas. It's possible. It is all possible. And we want Trouble Nation to help you all out. So hope to see you there soon.
It's absolutely incredible how this has been blowing up. Red, Wine, and Blue created Trouble Nation, and Kim, you and Missy have been leading the way on the team, and it's just wild. It was like we had this inkling, right? That seems like there's a hunger out there. People want to do this. They're just ad hoc coming to us all the time to kind of do the matchmaking, to find other people in their community, get some leadership support. But wow, this is a classic like Field of Dreams scenario. Like if you build it, they will come. So thank you for building it. And the women are coming, and amazing. Everyone on this call who's saying that I need to find my squad or I have my squad, we're gonna put it all together. So thank you, Kim, for sharing all that Trouble Nation. Yeah. And I have a feeling it might be growing a little bit more this week after that pitch for all the success you're having there in Central Bucks.
But it's a great example of the fact that this is not something way out there and radical and that people are going to be offended by what you're doing. This is decent people saying, let's stop with the extremism. Let's stop turning everything into a political football, and let's take back our communities to support each other in whatever way is appropriate for our community, as opposed to the craziness that we're all trying to deal with. And the thing about that is that I can't tell you how many people that used to be politically very different than I am who are now like, we got to do this together. And that, as I say, is an incredibly creative place to be operating right now.
That's my favorite thing about Trouble Nation, is just the absolute creativity of these women. I mean, the names of the groups alone are just, I could go on all day. Okay, so now I want to bring on Heather, the famous Julies within Red, White, and Blue, who these are the women who, run our national trainings. We have, dozens of women throughout the Red, White, and Blue community who hold these trainings in person and virtually throughout the country every single day. And we always want to make sure that when we come together, that we are giving people the tools to really get stuff done. And what we know is absolutely critical in the next 5 days is to make sure, as you and I were discussing, that everyone we know votes, and also that every stranger we meet, we talk to them about voting too. So we want to make sure that everybody feels well equipped to do both of those things. So I'm going to hand it over to the Julies to talk about the most effective way possible to make sure that everybody is voting, because don't assume for a minute they are. They just aren't.
So as Katie said, we have just a few days left to impact elections and get everyone we know out to vote. And we need you all to join us on Rally and reach our voters. The opposition is trying every dirty trick in the book, from ads with flat out lies to trying to scare people, to scrubbing their social media to hide their extreme views and pretending to be moderates. And we defeat these tactics by shining a light on it. And that means talking to everyone we know and giving them the info they need to be informed voters.
And we know that a lot of you guys are already out there talking to your friends, right? You're talking on social media, you're texting them, you're in group chats, you are doing this, you are rallying your squad. This is called relational organizing. There's a name for it. It's just friend to friend, talking to your friends. And it's so effective because your friends trust you and they believe in you. And so we want to make all those conversations that you have already had and that you are hopefully going to have really count. And we want to show the impact you're having. And that is why being part of our rally, our online tool rally, and reporting in on those voters that you were talking to is so important. If you guys want to show those extremists out there that they better not mess with us, that we will not be bullied, and that we are going to actually turn out the voters to defeat them, we use Rally, because that is a place where all Red, White, and Blue members can come together. You can be super effective. We will give you the information you need to send to your voters. You tell us who you're reaching. And then when this election is over, we show the impact we had. And we basically can show how we kicked some extremist butt.
And we can't stop with the conversations that you've already had. We need to keep reaching out, because every voter that turns out matters, that you turn out matters. And these local and state races are often won by just a handful of votes. People don't often vote because they don't know about the candidates. So we want you to make your friends feel like they are informed voters, and they'll turn out. And that could be the difference.
Okay, everybody, I want you to pull out your phones right now. Please put in the chat if you have your phone in your hand and you are ready to go, because we only have a few days left. We need every single person on this call doing this. I should say this, we are doing this in Ohio, Virginia, Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. That's where we have staff on the ground. If you are in one of those states, everybody on this call, you guys see how many people are on this call? We can make such a huge difference. So if you're ready to go, just say hell yes in the chat. I'm ready to go. Pull out your phone. You can either text Rally to 59868 or scan this QR code. We're also dropping links in the chat right now so you can easily get on. And then I want you to think through, who have you already talked to about elections? Because that's easy. It could have been in person. It could have been over Facebook. Record that you talked to that person in Rally so we can show that you made an impact with that voter. And then, keep coming back in and recording. And we're going to think through who are the other people that you can reach out to, what actions can you take? And we're going to keep adding to that list.
Okay, so now let's get started. The very first thing we want you to do is click the state you live in or where you have the most friends, and let's get your account set up. So you're going to click Join Campaign, and then you're going to sign in if you already have an account, or sign up to create one. You'll enter your email, and you'll be sent a magic link. There are no passwords.
Okay, and this part's easy. You're just setting up your profile. So just your name, where you're located, and you get to match yourself to the voter file. If you can't find yourself, then just select none of these, but go check your voter registration.
And so next we're going to start adding the people that you're going to contact. You're going to see Build Your Network. So click Add Contacts. Have somebody in mind. For right now, think about your bestie, your spouse, your adult child. And then just click Add Contact, and you can enter them directly. And if you want some help brainstorming who to add, click Brainstorm, and that'll give you categories that you can look at.
And then the cool thing about the Brainstorm is that it helps you kind of build your list of people that you may not have thought of, like, oh, I forgot about that mom from the soccer field, or, the person I worked in the PTO event with. So you build that list and you get those people added into Rally. We do not ask for their phone numbers. We do not ask for their emails because we are not contacting them. We want you to contact them. We want a friend-to-friend outreach here. What we do need then to match them to the voter file so we can show our impact. We can show what voters we all turned out together to defeat extremism and to make sure that our candidates win these elections. So you match the person. You're going to get a list of people who match that in the voter file. You enter legal names, city, and age range, and that's how you can match people in the voter file. A list will come up. You will pick the person that is the voter you're trying to reach out to, and click the match or none of these if they do not show up. And then the very last step is there's a key question. We just ask you, is this person like a super vol? Like they should be on this helping us, or are they someone who needs to be persuaded? You just kind of rank them on a scale of 1 to 5, and we target actions in Rally to make sure that we're getting the right information to the right voter based on like what level they're at.
Okay, so now it's time to start reaching out to your friends and family, or to record the outreach you've already done. So you'll see Rally Your Squad. Get started and click a friend's name to take action. One really cool feature about this is you get to see the voting history of your friends, and we also suppress their name from actions once they vote. So you're really being strategic with your outreach. So you all will make a difference by rallying your squad. And I want to really thank you guys for doing this with us tonight. And I'm going to kick it back to Heather and Katie, because I know you guys have a lot to discuss about relational organizing and the power of women's voices.
Thanks, Julie. As always, giving people the concrete tools.
Great.
The Julies are great.
They really,
they've been on this red, wine, and blue journey with me from the very beginning. They're my sisters in this fight. I'm blessed by the Julies. You are too, Heather.
The terrific Julies. They ought to take that. It's like the start of a rock band.
Yeah. Okay. So I saw people saying, I think people are busy. I loved all the people saying, I'm ready. I've got my phone. And even the people who said, I don't live in one of these states, but I know people in this state and I'm going to share it with other people who know people in these states. That's exactly what we want you to be doing. Because for example, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, those are 3 of the states that have some of the most consequential elections on Tuesday. And so that's why we've got to focus there. That doesn't mean where you live, if you're not one of those states, isn't also important in this fight. And that is why we want you to get connected with Troubled Nation, with Missy and Kim. Connect up with them, find your squad so that you can fight extremism where you are too. Because the more local, the more based in your own community you are, the more effective you're going to be, no question. So we really hope that you can take that opportunity tonight. Okay, so where are we? I'm trying to see if we have more time or if it's time to bring on. I think we get to bring on Penny. Penny Blue. Isn't that the greatest name in the world?
She can be in the rock band.
Penny Blue and the Julies. That's a nice ring to it.
There we go. There we go.
Happening.
And when they hit the charts, they can fund red, wine, and blue. We'll be all set.
Oh my God, that sounds great.
It's always good when it's a plan that somebody else has to do all the work, right?
Okay, I want to bring on Penny because she has been leading the charge in Virginia. You know, all of this stuff that Glenn Youngkin got going back in 2021 about so-called parental rights, which really just means like the most extremist views when it comes to public education coming out of Washington, D.C., being used to manipulate parents and take advantage of our exhaustion and frustration. To try to drive a very partisan extremist agenda that is anti-public schools, public education, which is such a pillar of our democracy. That has been a hugely galvanizing issue for women in our community, in addition to reproductive rights, bodily autonomy and being able to really protect our kids and make sure they can have access to an accurate education. Pretty important. So I wanted to bring on Penny because she's been leading this fight in Virginia to make very clear to Glenn Youngkin and all those state legislators who are trying to get reelected and add to their ranks in Virginia in this election, because in Virginia, they actually have their entire state legislature up for a vote, which is different than most other states in 2023. And so, Penny, if you could come on and tell us about how you have been fighting back to make sure that they don't get to own this idea of who speaks for parents. I mean, how have you been doing that on the ground, Penny?
Sure. First of all, I'm so excited to be on here with Katie and Heather. In Virginia, as you go, we're new to it. Came to Red, Wine, and Blue. We just came to Virginia in May, and we had our kickoff meeting in June. And I guess it's because Virginia has an election every year. Our political apparatus or machine is very sophisticated and a little difficult to penetrate, especially when it's that far down the road. But then we found out that Governor Youngkin was going around or having a tour around the state with our parents' mind he wrote into office on parents' rights. So as Katie says, we had an inkling that if we partnered with some other groups such as We the People for Education and Moms Rising and put together a tour of our own, and we called it Parents Not Politics, that would help give us entry into the community. And it actually really did, very much so. And what we geared it toward was mothers who were sick and tired of Governor Youngkin and other politicians in Richmond trying to tell them how to raise their children. And then we had a very simple runner show. We would introduce Red, Wine, and Blue to the community. And then we allowed speakers to speak only 3 minutes, but our speakers were either school board members, school board candidates, moms or dads, teachers, or just community people that were interested in the school system and did not like what they were seeing. And then once that was complete, the audience was very hyped. And then we would share with them what they could do about it. And what they could do about it is relational organizing. We shared with them that relational organizing is the most powerful way that you can impact people to vote, which is basically friend to friend, person to person. And with women, that is what we do best. And I call it Red, Wine, and Blue superpower. And so once we did that, it made the candidates, the school board members, our candidates, they felt seen, the community felt seen. We had conversation and questions afterwards, and everybody left upbeat, and it really allowed us to gain entry into these communities. And we know that because initially we had to go into the community, set everything up. Toward the end, we were being invited into communities that we were having a hard time getting into. They would schedule the building. And one of my organizers last week, she was so excited because she attended 2 events last week where when they were introducing the mayor and other dignitaries, they introduced Sarah Goodman here representing Red, Wine, and Blue. So we feel really good about where we are in Virginia.
That's so great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, Penny has some superpowers. There's no question. And being able to galvanize parents who I think have just felt like what is happening in Virginia? Like, do we get to speak for ourselves? And you have given them the power to have that voice, which really is a superpower. It's such a beautiful thing. And Penny, you're an incredible leader. Thank you for everything that you're doing in Virginia.
Great, thank you.
With Laura and the whole team, we love it. Love to see it. Virginia is for lovers and parents.
Oh yeah, let me
who
show
wanna
off my
speak up.
shirt.
Yeah, I love it.
Parents, not politics.
That's so great. You know,
And that's from Drew. He created this.
Drew is running the slides tonight. Drew who can do it.
And defending the public schools is so crucial. It really is. So good for you for doing that. And it's so exciting.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Heather.
I truly do feel that the school system is, as I said, the foundation for our democracy.
It is. Yeah. Good for you. You're right.
Mhm. Thank you.
So, Heather, you have been on the road for your book tour, and I think it's a really cool time to have been on the road, just hearing from people.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm just sort of curious, like, what's the main theme, would you say, that you are hearing on the ground? And after you tell us that, I'm super excited because one of the Amanda Polly, who is one of the women we work with in Pennsylvania, she drove all the way to Boston to get to meet you. And I know that I've been getting these like selfie pictures sent of like RWB members and members of our team, you know, like, look, I'm not Heather, like all these stuff. You know, I've never met you in person. We're going to in March. But what are you hearing on the ground?
So I think that exactly what I said before. I think that people are waking up and recognizing that they have felt stripped of their power. They've felt stripped of their agency. And when they start to recognize that, in fact, there's a whole bunch of us who feel the same way, and that what we're really doing is we're defending traditional American values of equality before the law, a right to have a say in our government, and majority rule, which are not radical concepts, let me tell you. And what I find exciting about that is, first of all, the people themselves. But this is part of such a long tradition of American movements that expand liberal democracy. And I find, one of the things that kind of surprises me is that if you think about the people that we can call ourselves our ancestors, the people we can call our ancestors, are people like Fannie Lou Hamer and people like Red Cloud and people like Abraham Lincoln and, this incredible group of people. And those extremists who are trying to impose their will on the rest of us, who can they call their own? And I love the fact that we are sort of carrying this ball forward and recognizing that we not only have our squads around us here in the present, but that we are part of this greater river of people who have worked throughout American history, at least, I can't speak for other countries, to solidify democracy and to expand it. That's a pretty heady thing to be doing while you're texting your friend going, "You sure you showed up to vote?" And I find that just incredibly exciting.
Well, I want to bring on Amanda Polly, who is in Pennsylvania. Amanda, tell us about your wild road trip tour and why you did what you did, and tell us the story, because I haven't even heard this straight from you. I just saw the selfie pictures. So
of course. Well, because Katie is just as wonderful as everyone thinks. Before we got into cycle, she talked to us about taking care of ourselves, because this work is really, really hard. So I planned a trip in the middle of cycle to the Boston Book Festival, because Heather, you were sold out everywhere in Pennsylvania. So me and my good friend, who is the reason why I'm involved in organizing, drove to Boston. It was 6 hours. We had the best time. It was just, you were amazing and so kind. And the best part, I think, was I was meeting my son there. He's a freshman in college. And I'm sorry, I'm like a little nervous because I'm starstruck. And there was a line around that church. Heather, did you see it?
I actually had to go through it to get to where I needed to be. Yeah.
like for a historian in 2023, it was so exciting to be part of that. But my favorite part was as I waited in line, you were only signing autographs for 30 minutes. And then they sold out of your book. And I had 2 copies I wanted signed. The bookstore that was there hosting right in front of me. There was a lady and they told her she would be the very last one. And I looked at, I believe Lori is her name. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't want Heather to sign a thing. Like, she doesn't have to sign anything. And I don't even have to meet her. Could you just give her the sticker for us? I work with Red, White, and Blue. And when I said that, I was treated like a star. Like, she said, oh my God, we love Katie Paris. Heather loves the work you do. And like, open the line and let me walk right in. And I know that you meet thousands of people, but I introduced myself with Red, White, and Blue. You told me you couldn't wait to be back. When I told you I was from PA, you said, how's it looking there? And the woman in front of me, whose book you had just signed, you were speaking to her about relational organizing. And you started to call her back over for me to talk to. And my best friend was like, I'm going to take a picture. I'm like, I'll talk to her. And it was a really exciting moment. I gave those books to friends. And then my son mailed me this one for my birthday that just came in the mail because he knew I had given the others away. My son is 17, or not 17, he's 18 now. He is going to college in Boston to be a history professor as well. You are an inspiration to us both. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that story, but I think it also illustrates what I keep saying, and what is so cool is that I'm the coffee pot in this party. I'm the person that people are gathering around, but the connections that people are making in lines, for example, or in audiences or over Zoom, are really what it's all about. And there's a reason that the book is dedicated to the readers. I've talked about that before, rather than to, the people and individuals in my life, is because we're this phenomenal community. And by the way, if you want to write to me, I actually have book plates that I will sign that book for you without you sending it to me and me sending it back. So if you would like that. And we do good pictures, as I recall.
One more important thing that you said to me as I was leaving, I said that I looked up for you, and you said, looked up to you, and you said to me, now I'm going to get emotional. Every moment in history, like this time in our history, needed heroes. And you thanked me for the work I was doing. And I meet so many heroes in this work every day. And it was definitely the boost I needed to get me through the rest of the cycle. And my team will tell you I remind them of that often. So thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. And that's absolutely right. The heroes are just the people who put one foot in front of the other until all of a sudden they've made a difference. And that's exactly what you're doing. It's so cool.
Thank you.
I have loved every minute of this. I feel like it's just been like synapses firing, of like just all the connections. I can't wait to finally meet you in a few months. I know we're going to be together in Ohio in March, Heather, and hearing from all these women who are inspired by you, who are doing the work, putting that, one foot in front of the other. It just does give me so much hope. I mean, it's like we do these Zoom calls, thousands of people sign up. You're a historian who has lines around buildings, people waiting to see you. Like, that shows that something is happening, which is exactly what you described, right? I mean, that's not, it's actually amazing, that you have become this rock star historian. It is amazing that we do get these thousands of people signing up for these Zoom calls.
I think that, as I say, a celebrity historian is quite like a jumbo shrimp, right? That thing doesn't really exist. What we have is a community, and that's what we're seeing. And it's not about me, and maybe it's not even about you. It's about a whole bunch of people saying, yeah, we needed that drop to start this process, but now that it's here, we're this amazing community.
That's absolutely right. It's not about any one individual. It's definitely not about me. It is definitely about this community. It is about us. So I just want to thank you, Heather, and every single person who spent this time with us tonight. I have just loved every single second of it. Thank you for everyone in the chat and your thousands of comments. And if you didn't get your touch point made tonight, we assure you we will be in touch with you and following up. And also, anyone here, you can always email hello@redwine.blue, and we will do that. If you didn't get one of the email addresses that was dropped in the chat, or a point of connection for you to make further connections, we've got you. Say hello@redwine.blue and show up in that email box. And we respond to absolutely every message. So Heather, the next time we see you, we'll certainly be on the other side of this election. We'll be looking at 2024, and the consequences are just going to be huge of Tuesday. And so thank you to you, and thank you to this community for knowing that we are going to give it our absolute best.
Let's do this. Let's do this Tuesday and next year and on into the future.
It's go time. Thanks, everybody.